Hello and welcome. This is Josh Dippold. That's what they call me, I guess. Some people do. And this is an Open Wisdom Wednesday, another Open Wisdom Wednesday. How's everybody doing? For those of you who are new to this, the description I give is Irregular Wisdom Office Hours. I ask unplanned, general, and specific questions for your wisdom, and you ask me. And in the meantime, we share openly, likely from whatever is currently happening to get our wisdom. And what I've been doing for the last little bit is just coming up with a title, maybe the day of, day before, or something like that, but not really thinking much of it, not planning much, not feeling into it much, and just going with it, with that title, letting what flows through. But of course, I want to hear the wisdom you have to share, what wisdom you've learned this week, what you would like wisdom with, what it even is wisdom. And Marita says, good afternoon from Stockholm. Hey, yes, I'm in the outskirts of Copenhagen area. So this one I'm titling is Flat Out of Balance, or just Flat Out Balance. It was brought to my attention in regular life not too long ago. Regular life, like what is unregular life, right? That there's this notion of how we're emoting, how we're expressing ourselves. And there's some people that really are emotionally expressive, really wear their emotions on their sleeve. And there's some people that are more stoic, hold back, kind of flat. Even to the point where some people might say, well, if one isn't showing emotion, then they're cold and they're not expressive. Maybe they're not even present. But then the other side might say, well, no, I'm just very balanced and don't see where a lot of extra emotions that's not necessary or that's not there to begin with or not generated, it's not going to help anything. So, of course, where's the balance between this, right? Where do we really want to show our emotions? Of course, it's always better authentically. And again, no emotion is ever wrong. You can't argue with emotions. That's why I really like this. And I think some people even say this is what makes us distinctly human. For me, though, what I tend to identify more with is the mind, being a male a lot of times. Not to mean that I don't feel deeply. And I would even say that despite that, I'm fairly empathic too. I sometimes forget that ability. So what wisdom do people have on this notion of being expressive emotionally or holding back emotionally? When is it a good time to really express emotions? When is it a good time to draw them back? Do you ever find yourself being inauthentic with how you are emotionally, or perceiving that from others? How do we know the difference between this? When have emotions served you well? And then when have they kind of gotten you in trouble? And then what do we do about it? How do we either dial it up or dial it down? And I don't know if these things really need to be thought about. I mean, we can just feel into these with our hearts. Does anybody even think there's any degree of agency over emotions? Is it just habit patterns playing out, or the opposite, of not being emotionally expressive? What is the purpose of emotions anyway? It also occurred to me that in some of the Buddhist teachings, the Buddha, at least the Theravada teachings I know of, he never really there's not really a word for emotions, like in and of themselves as a classification, like grief, joy, anger, sadness, despair, gladness, joy, agitation, excitement, all these type of things. To me, I wonder if they're actually just a perception too. One way they are classified, though, is every experiential moment is classified as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neither pleasant nor unpleasant. And it's interesting. The reason I bring this up is because I think there's some cultures and some societies that they might not have words or labels or recognition for certain types of emotions, that other cultures have rich, expressive language for certain types of emotions. And, maybe one culture might perceive what's they're seeing and experiencing from someone else as entirely different thing than another person from another culture might perceive. So I wonder how deeply involved our perception is when it comes to emotions too. I know sometimes I'll see a small child and they'll just kind of be crying, and it's hard for me to discern sometimes if I'm not looking and seeing what the situation is. I just happen to walk by, if it's actually like a tears of joy or tears of anger or being upset. And sometimes it switches quite quickly too. Like you have a dad will step in and have the kid laughing in a second from being crying and upset before. And it doesn't seem that too much difference. Of course, there's a slight difference a lot of times, but. So this word flat out too, it's kind of an expression in English. It means to go really fast and hard and extreme, just flat out go, flat out do something or another. And it's kind of a play with balance. We don't really think of balance as flat out. And this notion of balance too, it goes with, I think, equanimity. Having this even keel, grandmotherly wisdom that, even though we care very deeply for someone, we can't make their decisions in life for them. And only we can be responsible for ourselves and our actions, our thoughts, our words. So any thoughts or feelings on equanimity, this peace, this even keelness, this wisdom that's very heartfelt, but doesn't go into maybe very emotive things like gladness and rejoicing, which is wonderful and beautiful and sublime too, or things like loving kindness and compassion. This notion of equanimity I take sometimes as a balance. But then, of course, in psychology, we talk about people with like a flat affect. I think this is a term where there's really no emotional expression whatsoever, if I'm getting this right. So, be these due to drugs or whatever, maybe trauma. I'm not exactly sure what the going classification is on that. So, of course, there probably can be complications sometimes. And of course, there's what we show on the outside in our inner emotional life too, right? So, yeah, you guys are being quiet. I guess there's not all too many people here. Marita says, though, I have lived most of my life with people from very expressive cultures. My hubby was from Trinidad and Tobago, and we worked in the music business. Now I'm an older white woman, but with this experience within, but I touch people when we have a conversation and laugh quite loud. Yeah, this is great. The music industry, wow. In my 20s, that was pretty much my life. I couldn't really imagine a day without music, listening to all types of music from wherever, even very strange and experimental things. And it amazes me the rich diversity and expression and talent and artistry with music. And my dad is and parents are big music lovers. They have their own little niches that they like, but he's always listening to music, and I think that's how he interfaces with the heart the most. Yeah, and then like Marita was saying that yeah, it mellows with age, maybe, within this type of expression. But then, yeah, the connection, I think, is a big deal too with emotions as well. Some people express emotions in all kinds of different connections, and then some people connect on ways that are not emotional at all. So, well, guys, I think I'm going to start winding this down as well. If anybody has any, well, as far as the meditative side, there's a formal equanimity practice too. And some of the, trying to think of the formal phrases for equanimity. Basically what I said earlier on, like I really care about you in the situation, and I know I can't, at the same time, I can't make choices for you, and you're responsible for your actions. Yeah, so it's not indifference though, because indifference doesn't imply that there's care there. So indifference is like a close, a near enemy to this. It can be easily confused. And then how do we look at judgments and things with people? If it's easy with the extremes, right? If somebody's just completely zoned out and talking like a zombie, that's a little bit easier to wonder about them. And the same thing with these heightened extreme emotions too. But most of us are somewhere in the middle with these. Marita says, in the white culture, it could be challenging. And see, this is the thing too. I wonder, like, I come from a really small rural town, and what I think often gets mistaken for some racism is that there's no reference point for these white, stodgy, stiff people with no rhythm, and they don't really express themselves in such a free and open way in the same kind of thing. So if they're kind of thrown into a culture like that, there's not much of a reference point, or, it takes a training, I feel, to really kind of open up to that, unless one's just maybe naturally like that. So I don't think it's so much, it's more, if anything, it's xenophobia. Like, people are, in the other way around too, people are thrown into like, okay, well, I don't know what to do here. I mean, how do I act? I'm out of place, and then people get real self-conscious. What is everybody thinking about me? This type of thing. But a lot of times I feel just coming with an open mind to new situations for the most part, and be willing to learn and laugh about oneself and be kind, a way to me, it gets a lot easier when I just address people on an individual basis too. Then it's just heart to heart, and people know one's level of authenticity and care. They can just kind of feel it from heart to heart. Well, guys, I've got about a minute left, and thank you all for joining. And I guess a news thing here. Supposedly on Insight Timer, when I sign up for these events, they say to ask for donations. But it's nice to know too that I guess Insight Timer changed their policy lately, where if people give donations, it goes 100% to the teachers now, which I find is amazing. So there's a lot of middlemen in the way. And I just released some premium audio tracks. You can find those on Insight Timer. If you want them all in one place, just go to insighttimer.com/integrating presence, my profile. I wrote a little thing on the blog about them too, so you can see that. And of course, my course about the breath, progressive breath awareness booster. For those Plus members, just check that out and see if it's a 5-day course, see if you like it and whatnot. Well, may you all find the right degree of balance in your emotional expressions, internally and externally, and may you all be well. Bye now.